Okay, so I think we can start now. So this session should cover advanced K2 usage, tips and tricks, and more stuff that are mainly important to professionals. So we'll see some of the good things and the insights of K2. We'll show you some tips and tricks on using K2. And at the end, we will have an open discussion with you, obviously having used K2 already, to see potential new features and other stuff that you would like to see as professionals in future releases. So let's start with setting up K2. First of all, I'd like to ask, has anyone created a website with K2? Is that the case? Not everyone. Okay. Have you at least seen the demo, or is there someone that hasn't seen the demo or doesn't know what K2 is? Okay, you all know K2. So let's see how we set up a K2 website. What's important to understand is, basically we will cover a few sections, and what is important to understand is that there is a specific workflow when setting up K2 to make the most out of its features. So I will be assuming that we have installed our K2, our Joomla website, and the first thing that we do is go and install K2, and after that we see the main K2 screen. So the first most important thing that you have to do is make sure that you have the right parameters set up. There are quite a few parameters there, so it may seem a little bit confusing. But it's really worth taking the effort and the time to see all these settings, as they are global settings, defining lots of things, from styling elements to advanced features like improving performance in K2 and Joomla overall. So it's really important that you have a look at the configuration of the component once installed, so that you know what other stuff goes below K2. These settings will be probably set once in your website, and then it's something that you completely forget. Everything else will be set on primarily the content and the categories. So one important thing when we open the configuration is this switch that basically says if we're going to use K2's default CSS or not. Now, we've bundled K2 with some generic CSS to make it look good even on the default template of Joomla when it's installed, and that is the Milky Way template. So there's some minimal CSS to make K2 look good and have all the elements that it includes be represented in a nice way. So if you're going to do advanced templating, then maybe it's a good idea to disable the CSS. Then we have options for images. Like I said the day before yesterday, it's very crucial. If you know what type of sites you're doing, you'll know what type of images you'll be uploading. So since K2 creates multiple resized copies of the original image when it's uploaded, it's always important to make sure that you're using the right default values. Of course, these values for images that get resized can be overridden in categories, but because it's important is the reason that we've added the image settings at the very top of this configuration. Now, as we move on, we see other options controlling, again, mainly generic aspects of the component. And, for example, how the search views, the date views, the tag view look in our website. We can control here whether we're going to show the title of the article, the item, the text, the image, and so on. We also have options for the commenting system and the RSS feeds. And as we go down to the more advanced things, we will see, for example, stuff about front-end editing. People really usually don't notice this. By default, K2's front-end editing options are enabled. But if you don't want your users to see some of the tabs in K2, in the K2 item form, then you have these options here to actually hide these tabs. So if you're doing a website that is for primarily for articles, you can just show the content tab and the image tab, and that's it. What we've also done with K2 in the advanced settings area is that we've added some character replacements for the URLs. What this means is that unlike Joomla, if you've used Joomla with a non-Latin based language, you'll notice that when you write the titles in the articles, the title alias, which is used on the URLs, gets converted to numbers, or it maintains numbers and some Latin characters, if there are any, within the title of the article. In the case of Greek and other non-Latin based languages, that means that you get URLs that are basically just a number. So in order to bypass this, we are overriding Joomla's default behavior when handling the title alias, and we are able to actually have URLs that are UTF, international URLs. So for Greek, for example, I don't know if internet is back. Let's see. Oh. So anyway, for Greek, if we're having a website that's in Greek, the titles get converted to a Greek title alias. So that means the URLs are in Greek, and that means search engines like Google can scan the content a lot faster than if we were using the default Joomla behavior, which is IDs. This is something that's mostly useful for non-Latin languages. We've also added these replacements, which we got from SH404 Ceph. They are used to convert other characters that you can use this box here to do some replacements if you want for specific characters that will be difficult to be represented in the URLs. Yes?
What happens if you're using Joomfish and you have more than one non-Latin language?
What K2 does is that it always makes sure that the title used in any language will also be converted as the title alias, and therefore the URL of the item. What Joomfish does is, I don't think, no, Joomfish will not be able to, I don't think it will be able to translate the URL.
So then you have to have here, let's say,
Yep.
and also
Ελευθερή, αλλάζει.
It depends on the Joomfish XML content elements. If you choose to translate the alias, you can do it.
Yes, σωστά. When translating K2 with Joomfish, yes, you have the option to also change the alias. So in that case, it will just pick up any language. So if you're using English and Swedish and whatever, the alias will obviously change. But what remains the same is the ID of the article, of course, of the item. Now, in the latest version, 2.3, which we plan to release in a few days, we would have released 2.3 here at JMBeyond, but unfortunately the lack of internet made it a bit difficult. Either way, we have added new stuff like the selection for a better tagging system. We are giving more control over tagging for administrators. We've also have options for Google search integration. And there are some performance settings, which is always nice to have a look. These performance settings make sure that that in case of websites with thousands of articles, the backend is always fast and the front end is fast as well. So there are some tweaks that it's worth taking the effort and the time to test if you plan to use K2 with big websites. Finally, we have two specific settings for SH404 Ceph, which is more or less the de facto Ceph component for Joomla. These options allow you to prefix specific words for categories, for category pages, and for the user profiles. So that means you can have, like we have here, on all categories, you can have domain.com/items/ the name of the category, or it could be categories. It's a simple way to use SH404 Ceph and apply different naming patterns for your URLs. So the next important thing to keep in mind when installing K2 is basically the order of setting up things. You should perhaps consider that this should be the start, but it's actually the exact opposite, so to speak. If we know our categories and the potential use of the website, it's better to start building the extra field groups, building the user groups that make up the ACL on the front end as well, then our categories, and finally start doing our items. If you make sure that the category tree that you have is final and you know what you want to do with K2, then you can easily set all these options basically once and forget them. Just as a reminder, when we create extra field groups, we assign each group to one specific category. It's more appropriate to say that each category can only be assigned to one extra field group. So we cannot have some category obviously be assigned to multiple extra fields groups. Of course, we can have the same extra field group be assigned to multiple categories, and this is what you would do in a catalog situation where you have a list, a tree of categories and subcategories, and you want all these categories to inherit, to be able to read the extra field groups that are implemented in K2. One important thing, especially for those that are trying K2 for the first time, or those that are professionals that want to use K2, is the import functionalities we have. One is for content here. This will bring up within K2 all the Joomla items, all the Joomla articles, the sections and the categories. The importing function will make the Joomla sections as primary categories in K2, and all the categories are created as subcategories to these primary categories. So you have your complete structure of sections and categories being imported within K2 to a nested level system, and then you can of course extend this. All the items maintain on the first import their IDs, so it's also easy for you to more or less create a plugin that will redirect all URLs to the new URLs. Another important function is associated with the users. If you have a big website with thousands of users being registered to download stuff or read stuff in your website, it's quite important if you decide to use K2's ACL and user groups. It's a very good thing to be able to create some groups, assign some features, some actions, and then go to users and import all the Joomla users. Now this importing function will transfer all the Joomla users into K2 as well, basically extend Joomla users with K2 features. So the Joomla users are not leaving the Joomla system, we are just extending them. We're adding to them more features. And once we do that, you will notice that once you migrate, you hit the import button, K2 will create these groups, which are basically the default user groups in Joomla. Let me show you. Okay, so as you see, we're adding this flag saying important from Joomla. It's exactly the same groups. And then, for example, like I said, if you have a community with users that are just simple registered users, you can just edit this group here and assign different tasks, different actions. So obviously, if you're migrating to K2 and now you have commenting, you can allow these people to post comments. Save, and now they'll be able to comment within K2 items. What we've also done in version 2.3 is that we have added some cool features for basically managing the users, some features that are missing from the Joomla User Manager as well. So, for example, you can disable multiple users, which is something, if I recall, this is not possible with Joomla. Let's see. Yes, as you can see, you cannot disable multiple users. So we've added all these handy functions within K2 to be able to manage your users better from within K2. So if you want to migrate or move users from one group to the other, it's a lot easier to do this with K2. You can select, for example, 2 users and move them to a different Joomla user group and K2 user group. Like I said, these are handy stuff that we've added to make administration even better. So once you set up K2 and import your users, your Joomla users into K2, you can forget about the Joomla User Manager and do all sorts of administration activities related to users within K2. Now, comments and tags, of course, well, comments, they don't have any special settings or whatever. This is just moderating them, as well as the tags. Categories are what make up, of course, with your website. They define basically the content of your website. There are some things that you need to make sure you notice with the categories and the items. You'll notice that we have, unlike Joomla, Joomla has the article trash as a menu, different menu. While on the other hand, we use this drop-down selector filter. So when you delete a category, it goes to the, let me show you. So we've deleted a category. You don't see it here, but if you want to see it and revert it back, we've moved it to the trash. Now, if you notice, the active categories they are all blanked out, faded. While the trust one has a select box which you can use to permanently delete. Now, why we did this? We did this because when you delete categories within a nested level category structure, you have to be able to easily pinpoint if you do a mistake, if some category belongs to some other. So it's always best to see the actual category tree. Some users, we've noticed that sometimes they forget the filter and they go to the forum and post, where are my categories? I cannot edit them. Well, when it's very simple that they've forgot the filter. Next is the items. We've used a similar approach here as well. The trust state is here as well. What we've additionally added over managing articles within Joomla is the fact that you can select multiple items and make them featured. This is an option especially useful for editors-in-chief. We can filter, of course, by category, and we can filter by featured state or not. Now, after we've set up K2, like I said, after we've defined the parameters, the right parameters, we have to, if we plan to use K2 as a media publishing component, and we want to have users in the front end managing content, we have to properly adjust the ACL as well. Now, the ACL of K2 is only for the front end. There's no option to use the ACL in K2 for the backend, and that's because basically Joomla does not allow you to do this. So we've just created our own ACL for the front end, as this is the most important part for websites that have dozens of journalists and editors, and they want to maintain some level of control. Of course, in Joomla 1.6, when there's a better ACL system for the backend as well, we will be able to adjust K2, and you, the site owners, will be able to allow certain people be able to see certain things within K2 in the backend. So, like I said, the ACL is just for the front end, so we have to make sure that within those, the global parameters, this option here is set to yes. This will allow front-end editing and basically open up the front-end editing with ACL features in our website. Now, what's the K2 ACL? We have defined some common actions for handling the content. These actions are typical, basically, on all CMSs. We create a group and assign what users within this group are able to do. So these things will mostly cover 90% of your needs. So if users are able to post comments, we can select yes or no. We can select if they're allowed to input content from the front end. This will basically open up front-end editing for any group. And furthermore, we can obviously have more control whether these users that have access to front-end editing can add their own items, edit their own items, or edit any item. And finally, if they're able to publish items. So if you adjust these groups, these permissions properly, you can get as many user groups in the front end as you want, managing the appropriate content. So for example, plain authors who are able to contribute content, they would have front-end editing, yes, add items, yes, edit own items, yes. And all the others, the last two, set to no. If these authors were to manage content in one specific category, then we could select this specific category. And then these permissions will only affect this category. Let me show you. So as you can see here, I have now logged in, and we have this. This is the mode K2 login module, which is basically your user's toolbar. So this module ships by default with K2, and as you can see, now that I've logged in and I have the right permissions, I can see some specific stuff here. So being an administrator, I am able to add a new item from wherever I am. And as you can see, I have the ability to add content to any category. If I didn't have this, if I was only able to manage content within a specific category, it will look like this. Let me show you. So I edit my own permissions, reload the page. As you can see now, this is an active category and it can be selected because it's the only category that I'm allowed to post content in. The other categories are blanked out, and we've left them like this because, again, it's important for editors that have specific rights to be able to understand where to put their content. They may be allowed, for example, to input content in subcategories only on a second level under specific primary categories. So you want them to be able to see the whole tree and put the content on the appropriate categories. As you can see, of course, the editing page is more or less the same as with the backend. And like I said, all the tabs here can be deactivated if we need further less control over content by our users. So, like I said, depending on the permissions that a user has, they will be able to see this option and this one. So imagine that you have a website with people that contribute content, and this content, these articles, these items, they have comments, and people write comments to these articles. Instead of getting all the load of managing comments through the backend, you can allow your users to moderate comments to their own items. So if there are any comments, they can just use the front end to administer these comments. Let me show you. Now, if we wanted to build a small community of users with their blogs and so on, they would have to be able to easily navigate to their profile. So this is what obviously the My Page link does. It will show you, gets you to your page, and you will be able to see your profile and all the associated items, if there are any, below. Let's log in with a different account. So as you can see here, we see our page, and we also see, if we're logged in, we can edit our items. And in version 2.3, we can even see the unpublished items. So as you can see here, this is an unpublished item. That's why we see with a dashed border. If we publish the article, then reload the page, as you can see, it's different now. It doesn't have the... So we've added all these sorts of actions to make front-end editing as easy as possible for users. And basically, you can use K2 now to build a very basic small community with people that contribute content, have their own pages, have their profiles. Last thing is the link to the My Account page. As you can see, we have the Joomla basic stuff, the K2 stuff, and this is a K2 plugin running here. And finally, some more Joomla stuff. So the user is also able to fully manage their profile, their extended profile, through this module in a very simple way. Of course, if you did some advanced templating and some stuff that would require your website to look, say, like a community, you could use this module as a toolbar and change, using MVC templating, those links to make them look as you see fit. So it's easy to use this module all in all to create an attractive layout and close to a small community. Okay. Now, front-end editing, specifically in K2, like we said, the forms are basically they are basically identical to the backend. There are some elements that we chose to hide, but these are elements that are basically should be allowed from the backend as well. So if there's some user, some administrator that has access to all K2's items, it's best to manage K2 through the backend. Now, front-end editing is very simple within K2. If we have the right permissions, whenever we go to some category, you will see that there are these links, like this one and this one. This is unfortunately, this is the demo site on my local computer, and it's not so updated to the utmost latest release of K2. So this one should be a little bit to the left. But as you can see, you're able to add a new item within this category, even if you don't have the module, the Mod-K2 login module somewhere near for the user to see. And of course, if you have the right permissions, you can see a link to edit each item. And it will work as it does on any occasion. The comments, like we said, as you can see, the list is almost identical to the backend, and there's also the option to filter comments by category, so that we make managing the contents a little bit easier. And it's also a simple way for editors-in-chief that only have front-end access to be able to see They obviously are able to, moderate comments. They're obvious. No, people. It's only for people that input their own items. It's a way to just moderate their own comments. We also use the Ajax functionality to edit the comments. And of course, all the other features of managing and handling comments. Now, templating. We use two important concepts within K2 for templating. One is the sub-templating features. We have, as you know, we can use K2 to build all sorts of content sections within a website. We can have our news, we can have our knowledge base, documentation, anything that you can imagine, a video section, whatever. And if our website is able to handle different types of content, different actual types of content, then it should be able to handle these different types of content visually different. So that means we can use K2 to actually create different sub-templates for different categories. So you have different categories looking completely different because they should. The other concept, on-the-fly MVC templating as we call it, is basically a way to complement sub-templating. You're able to create new views for your K2 website. You can create new designs for your categories and have all these designs within folders, but inside your Joomla template. So you don't have to create these new sub-templates within K2 itself. K2 should always remain clear, and you can use K2 sub-templating techniques within your Joomla site, within your Joomla template, and be, of course, completely independent of K2. Let's see what this is. So in the back end, if I edit a category, as you can see here, there's this option to use a sub-template within K2. So if I had a website that has news, videos, and blogs, I could create 3 different sub-templates, and they would show up here. And then when I create one category, I could select, so if it's for blogs, I could select the blogging sub-template. Let me show you how sub-templates are structured. As you can see, this is the root of Joomla and the components. This is the front-end part of K2. And unlike Joomla templating, normal Joomla templating, let me show you. Πώς το κάνουμε, control. Όχι, πώς σου ζουμάρω την οθόνη. Okay. Και πώς κινούμαι, εσύ.
Κάνε zoom out και βάλει το κουτίκι σου και χρειάζεται να κάνεις zoom για να πάει. Βάλε εδώ το κουτίκι. Να κάνεις zoom.
Okay, as you can see, a classic Joomla MVC component would have everything within the views. But what we've done is we've created a simple folder called templates, which you can just copy as it is, copy templates, and move it within your Joomla template. That means move it within templates, my Joomla template, /HTML/comk2. So comk2 would include this folder and these files inside. And by just doing this simple copy-paste procedure, you can start skinning K2 directly without, going inside each view like this. Okay, this is the classic way for Joomla. So we decided to, instead of having the designer go and pick up what template is appropriate in order to override, we decided it should be easier and have everything within a specific template. Now, if we want to create a sub-template, we can simply do it like this. So I just copied the default folder. The default folder contains just the views that will be changed through categories. As you can see, these views contain the category listings of items and the item page. So you can just copy this folder to a new one. And as you see, K2 will pick it up. Okay? Now, I said before, we use this on-the-fly MVC templating technique. That means you could actually do this. You could copy this folder, go inside your template, as you can see. We're inside our templates. Within the HTML folder, I can just copy the templates folder, rename it to com.k2. If I go inside, again, I'll see the blog template, the blog folder. Now, as you can see previously, I copied the default folder to create a new style called blog. K2 picked it up in the backend. I will delete that view from within K2, and I will leave it just within my template structure. Okay, I think it's easy to see. Now, on-the-fly MVC means that K2 will pick this up. Will it? Com.k2 templates. No. Δεν έχουμε βάλει την... Yes, like I said, this is not an updated. Let me show. It just needs another path. As you can see, it has picked up the folder. But what I did is that this is now fixed in 2.3. What we did before 2.3 is we took templates and by accident, we had to transfer it within our HTML/com.k2 folder. But now with 2.3, you can just copy templates within your HTML folder in your template, and then simply rename it to com.k2. So either way, as you can see, it has picked up the new design that we created for our categories, and that means essentially that we can completely manage our HTML design and layouts where it's supposed to be within our templates. This is obviously what allows you to maintain both K2 clear and your sanity as well, because everything is placed in one position within the template. Now the same applies for modules as well, because believe it or not, most of the times you'll find yourself working with the modules. Most modern websites, they're usually built of small blocks on the front page, and this is where using the K2 modules comes. For example, the Gazeta website, I don't think, yes. The Gazeta website is completely based on Mod K2 content, the front page. So this is Mod K2 content, styled differently with some JavaScript to make it look like a slideshow. Mod K2 content copies within tabs. The editorial, of course. See, this is just retrieving one item with a title. The bloggers here, we retrieve the users. This is a new module that's inside K2 version 2.3. It's called Mode K2 Users. You can retrieve the latest item from users of specific groups, say the authors, or specific users, selected authors. Αυτό είναι το component. Yes, in this case we've also used the K2 component, but just for these 4 articles here. And 4 and 4. So these are basically, if you know K2 category terminology, these are 4 leading and then 4 primary and 4 secondary. Do we have more?
Yes, we have all the time more and more.
Yes, yes. Chris is obviously knows Gazeta better than I do. But all the blocks that you see with content, those blocks, everything is Mod K2 content. Yes, this is, so is the images. This is, again, Mod K2 content, filtering to show just the images and the title. And we use the small image and the big image as well to create this thing. Okay, so you can do all sorts of magic things with Mod K2 content.
The full image with the line.
Yes. This, of course, is the Mod K2 comments module, which retrieves the latest comments through the website. Now, like I said, Mod K2 content, which is obviously the most important module for any K2 website, is able to be templated using this on-the-fly technique, on-the-fly MVC technique. Let's see. So as you can see, there's the same thing here. And what we have to do is we just have to create, likewise, hello? Όχι, δεν χρειάζεται. Yes. See, I just added a folder, and if I make sure I just use the files that are within, let me show you. So as you can see, this is the module structure, the file structure of Mod K2 content. We have the TMPL folder, like on most Joomla modules, and in there we have these other folders containing the templating files for this module. So if I just copy this folder within my templates, HTML mod K2 content folder, and rename it to something different.
That's new 2.3, I thought. That's before you had to duplicate.
Yes, yes. So just add the copy paste the folder here, change its name, change the files, do whatever you want. So Gazeta, for example, it has like 10 different overrides. One is for the gallery, one is for the articles that are displayed, like title, text, image, and another maybe just for titles, and so on. So this concept is also available, if I recall, on mod K2 users as well. Yes, because mod K2 content and mod K2 users are the two modules that you will be most likely to skin differently. The other modules, the login one and the comments one, since they retrieve content in a generic way, or they do generic stuff, there will be no need, more or less, to have them styled differently. In other words, there will be no need to have a calendar block coming from mod K2 tools, styled differently on different pages. If you want to do that, you can just use CSS to override. Now, we're getting into a little bit more advanced stuff. The K2 plugin API. Let's see. Now, what we've done with the K2 plugin API is that we've basically allowed for plugin events to be executed in the backend and the frontend as well. We are, of course, using all front-end plugin events as used by Joomla and content. And we have added some additional ones because the content for K2 is a lot richer. So to be more specific, we have used new events that can be applied in basically 3 views. The category view, this is a category view. We can have events running there, as with Joomla, of course. We have the item view, where we can execute plugin events there, like on prepare content, where most Joomla plugins execute. And then we have the users page. So essentially 3 views. Now we can execute these K2 plugin events. Now, as you can see, we created a plugin, a simple plugin, which we've also released in public. The plugin is called User Extended Fields for K2. And what this plugin does is that it can hook up additional details about this user below their profile. And these details can also be shown in the item page at the bottom. If you use the default K2 styling, almost at the bottom of the text, you will see a block of the author with basic details. So you can have this plugin running on their page and on each item at the bottom of the content where the user block is. So obviously this is a plugin being executed on a custom plugin event. It's worth taking the time to download this plugin that you can find on the community and on the JED as well. And you will be able to see how the API works and how and you'll be able to see these extra plugin events that we use to fire and append content into these specific views. Now, K2, like I said, is extensible in the backend as well. So these plugin events have their related backend plugin events as well. So to be more specific, this plugin let me show you. This plugin is this K2 plugin basically installs as any Joomla plugin. It has its own group called K2 within the plugins folder inside Joomla. And as you can see, there are just two switches, but no fields for the stuff that you saw on the user profile here. This is natural because all the content that's supposed that this plugin is supposed to display should go to the user administration here. So if you open up your profile, you will see that the plugin uses the right plugin event in the backend to render these fields within the profile. So we have such plugin events for the user, front-end and back-end. We also have plugin events for the item and for the category as well. So you'll see we have this plugin, which we will also release sometime soon. It's called Related Items. And what this plugin does is it gets appended below the content tab here. It gets appended here. We can control on which tab the plugin will show. As you can see, if I switch on the image tag, it's gone. So this is just a way to create plugins that are specific to a certain task within K2. So obviously selecting related content here should go in this place. Okay. Hello. See? If it was, say, a plugin that fetches a video from some specific provider, we could create it and call it on a different event that can work here. So more or less, we have an example plugin on the community site of K2 where you can download it and see the events documented, those plugin events for the backend and for the frontend as well. So you can easily create K2 plugins with existing knowledge on creating Joomla plugins, and you can basically extend the item, the category, and the user forms in the backend and in the frontend in ways that, well, at least for the item, it may be limiting to do with the extra fields. The extra fields are limited to specific tasks, like text boxes, drop-downs, links. So if you want to do more, if you want to, say, add a Google map, you can create a plugin, append its backend forms, backend input at the content tab, say, and then have this also displayed in the front as well. So, αυτό θα δουλέψει. Το έχουμε βγάλει. Μπα. Yeah, this is obviously not finished. Έλα. Published. The plugin is, like I said, is under development, so it doesn't render. But I guess you get the idea of what you can do. The same way that you, if you download the user extended fields for K2 plugin, you will see how we attach the fields in the backend. This is done within the XML file of the plugin, and how we render these fields on the front end as well. It's existing Joomla plugin knowledge, more or less. Sorry, can you repeat once more? I didn't hear you. Yes, we have the default Joomla events, and these events obviously fire up if you create a content plugin. Of course, our system plugins work, and we have added some additional K2 events that they use Joomla's naming techniques. So we have on prepare content that fires where the output of the text is, and we also have on K2 prepare content. So wherever we have on something in Joomla, it will be on K2 something for K2. So we have basically on the item page, like more than 10 events, and basically you can control where you can position your plugin in many places. And of course, you can move these events in your website if you wish to create a plugin that fires in a specific event and in a specific position. So there's no limitation in how you can use plugins and execute them on the front end. On the back end, of course, it's obviously limited, meaning that if you create a K2 user plugin, it will obviously append those fields in a specific position in the backend forms. Like I showed you, run. That's just it. So that's more or less the K2 advanced features. So if you now want to ask anything or suggest stuff, we're here to answer. Yes.
So maybe it would be great if you put a Facebook-like button in the super plugin, a super blogger component of your super plugin, a super blogger extension of your K2. Because in Germany, more users use Facebook than Twitter. That's maybe under the retweet button, maybe Facebook like me, and maybe it's the option we put a like button on the bottom of the content.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are many ways to do this. You can either create a K2 plugin, which is like a Joomla plugin. You just have more events to fire this on the front end, or you can just append the Facebook-like code in just your template, your MVC template. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's quite easy. Yes, but I mean, as these services progress, we will of course change the features that are default, that ship by default with K2. So, you know, all these features here, they will not look this way as we progress. As new services are added, we will make sure always that, you know, we will update them, and you know, we don't just have the Facebook link, but we have the like button. Yes.
Using the menu selection for category, select multiple categories on menu link, which will then split up the category view.
Mm-hmm.
The problem there is you can't get a category description if it's a multiple category view. Would that be something you look at, or should you just work around the templates using a writer?
It depends. If you select multiple categories, what category description will show?
Well, it would be a custom description, obviously. You have to put a custom description.
Yeah, so in that case, you could, yeah, we just have to add a small box on, you know, the menu item. So.
Is this something I've encountered? I was just wondering.
No, it's nice. It's nice. I mean, so here, where we have these options, if we select multiple categories and these options get enabled, we could have a small box that you can use to append some text before the category content renders.
That was one. The other thing is also assigning an item to multiple categories. Will that ever be something you consider?
Now, there are some things here to take into consideration. You've used, for example, VirtualMart, and you know that you can have one item into multiple categories. But if you think about categorization properly, you will realize that categories are like folders, which, like physical folders, can be organized in physical drawers. So you can never have one folder belonging to two drawers. Okay, so if you see things like that, you can create a clear category structure in your website, and if you want to interlink items to multiple, say, pseudo categories, you use tagging for that. That's the tagging concept. Now, there are, of course, we could, of course, enable K2 multi-mapping, so you could have items in multiple categories, but then this makes things a little bit trickier on the front end, because you have to be able to determine the primary or the categories for each item when you render stuff. So it gets a little bit confused, and it's one of the reasons why multi-mapping was not added in Joomla 1.6 as well. It's also, I think, a performance issue. URLs can get, έχει να κάνει με το router.
URLs may be some self problems.
Yes.
Imagine what can happen in case with the parameters. We have quite a few parameters per category, and if one item belongs to many of more than one category, then it's getting too complex to handle this.
Fair enough. I think you guys also covered it.
Yeah, don't forget, sorry, just to complement this, don't forget that when you click an item in K2, this item will display all the elements that make up the item are defined within the category. So if this item belongs to two categories, how do you know which category is to be the one that says print these elements?
Thanks. You answered my question. I think you also covered that by means of your module structure, because you can also call in my item ID, so you can cross categories by doing it that way as well.
Yes, that's the idea. That's why we added all the parameters within the category, so that when you jump from one category to the other, you don't have the item ID thing, and you always know that your content will display properly. Unlike Joomla, if you create a menu item in Joomla, and especially in 1.6, and you jump from one item to another by clicking, say, the selected category, you're viewing an item and you see a link. Let's visualize this. You see this link, okay? And you click the link for this category. Now, when you navigate away to this category, Joomla will maintain the item ID of this page. And then if you go through that category to another page, which may have a different item ID, this will obviously not render. And if we used how Joomla does content organization, things would be messed up. So we had to obviously rethink how we should control all these parameters. And I think it's how, I don't think, I'm certain that it's how Drupal does it, and probably WordPress in the future.
One more question for me. In terms of extra fields in the backend, if you create extra field groups, and often you might end up repeating the same field name, is there no way you can naturalize the DB by reusing a field name?
What we could do is obviously be able to assign an extra field to more than one extra field groups. So in that case, yes.
Because I think if you're collecting, let's say, information from, to be displayed in multiple categories or whatever, you don't want to recreate an address field, for example.
Obviously. Yeah, yeah. Σημειώνεις τίποτα? Έχεις σημειώσει τίποτα?
Rather than have price repeated 6 times in 6 different categories, extra groups.
No, you're right, you're right. This is something that we can change because now that we have basically integrated the entire Tienda component within K2, this is in a plugin that will render within the items, below each item. So in such cases, it's clear that yes, we have to provide more flexibility into the workflow of K2 content. And like you said, allow extra fields to be assigned to multiple categories. By the way, the Tienda plugin that I mentioned, the K2 plugin for Tienda, will basically bring most of the Tienda functionality within such a block. And you can use K2 as the catalog. And likewise, of course, you have to be flexible with extra fields. So you can use K2 as the catalog, and when you click on buy buttons that this will generate, you just switch over to Tienda. And we are also fixing this for, we're also developing this plugin for virtual as well. So yes, there are workflow issues that we can fix and make it even more, flexible.
One last question. The upgrade process from current version of K2 to 2.3.
Seamless, just nothing. Just install on top, and it will just pick up all the new things. Which, like I said, we make sure we improve the workflow, but we don't change the database. So the only thing I think that we did from 2.1 to 2.2 is add indexes to the database, so that to the database tables of K2, so that it's more efficient in performance. But within the version 2 range, there will be no database changes, or if there are any, there will be minimal and adding new stuff, not messing with existing stuff. It's always on our mind, how to make this content management component be able to add new functionality on all our projects as well. So in order to do this as painless as possible, you have to, to take some, we have just designed K2 in such a way that we will not be needing to do this for the next couple of years. So when we reach version 3, and we're also considering to add multi-mapping, but we just need to figure out those, those issues that we mentioned earlier. Again, the changes may be minimal in the database, but all these changes are passed on the installation. So overall, the upgrading of K2 will always be an easy situation. And of course, things that we will add in version 2.4, like content versioning, and an import-export functionality of content is basically stuff that are preparing the ground for migrating to Joomla 1.6. So trust me, it will be a lot easier to move your Joomla 1.5 K2 site to Joomla 1.6 than using just Joomla 1.5 to Joomla 1.6.
Excellent product, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.